Your apartment was dimly lit by flickering candles on the coffee table. An old book lay open before you, its pages filled with strange symbols. You sat cross legged on the floor, muttering as you traced a circle of salt. You started reading from the book, O great prince of shadows, hear my call and step forth from the veil of fiction. You paused, sighing, what am I even doing? This is silly and stupid. You glanced at the book cover, The Dark Prince's Curse. Jungkook's piercing eyes seemed to stare back at you from the illustration. You deserve better than dying alone in some stupid tower. If no one else will fix your ending, I guess I will. I'll bring you here. You said, tracing his face on the book cover, and hesitated for a moment, then shrugged. What's the worst that can happen? It's not like this spell will actually work and he will appear in front of me. You sprinkle some dry herbs in the circle. Silence. The air feels heavy. You sit frozen, waiting for something, anything. For a moment, you think nothing had happened, and you let out a nervous laugh. Of course it didn't work. What was I even thinking? Summoning a fictional character? You said, relieved. You dropped the book and leaned back, staring at the circle. It's just salt and herbs, nothing magical about it. With a sigh, you reached for your phone, already planning to Google how to remove chalk stains from hardwood floors. What was I even thinking? Summon my favorite villain? Sure, why not? Maybe he'll show up and... But suddenly a faint outline caught your eye in the center of the circle. You freeze mid-sentence, your breath hitching. A dark flickering shadow began to form, shifting and swirling like smoke. You stumbled to your feet, clutching your phone tightly to your chest. What the? You whispered, trying to figure out what was happening. The shadow grew denser, taking the shape of a tall figure. First came the broad shoulders, then the long hair cascading down his back, and finally piercing eyes that gleamed like polished obsidian. The man materialized fully, his dark attire regal and menacing, a sword resting at his hip. His expression was sharp and bewildered, and his gaze locked onto yours. No, what the hell? I must be dreaming. This can't be true. You pinched yourself and it actually hurt, making your eyes even wider as you saw him in front of your eyes, real and alive. Who are you? He said, looking confused while you blinked rapidly, still trying to process what you are witnessing in front of your eyes. Who am I? Who are you? He stepped forward, his brows furrowing as he looked around the room. His confusion was clearly seen. This place, where am I? You panicked, stepping backwards. My living room. You are in my living room, but wait. How are you here? You're not supposed to be real. Jungkook's gaze snapped back to you, his expression darkened. What sorcery is this? Did you summon me? He asked in a demanding tone. You gulped because he was indeed dangerous. It only felt good when he was like that in book. I didn't think it would actually work. The two of you stared at each other, both equally stunned. His eyes narrowed, scanning you from head to toe, while you tried to process the impossibility of the situation. You gulped nervously. Me? What about me? Jungkook took a cautious step closer. You are familiar. Familiar? I don't even know you. Jungkook ignored your protest, his tone softened unexpectedly. I've seen you before, in my dreams. No, in my memories. You frowned, confused. Memories? I'm sorry, but we have never met. You are literally a character in a book. You said, picking the book while he was going, frustrated. A book? What nonsense is this? Explain yourself. You threw your hands up. Don't know. I was just reading this stupid spell out loud because I thought it would be fun, and now you are here and I don't even know if I'm hallucinating or... He cut you off by stepping fully out of the circle, his imposing presence making you stumble back into your couch. Enough. Whatever magic brought me here, it brought me to you for a reason. Reason? The only reason is that I'm an idiot who tried to fake spell. He paused, his sharp features softened as his head tilted slightly. He studied your face with a mix of curiosity and familiarity. You're not just anyone. There's something about you. he said softly while you pointed at him. Right back at you. You're not supposed to exist. The two of you fell into an awkward silence, both trying to make sense of what just happened. Finally, he lets out a low, exasperated sigh and sat heavily on the couch, still watching you intently. If you didn't mean to summon me, then why did you? You sank into a chair, burying your face in your hands. Because I was trying to fix your ending. He raised an eyebrow. Fix my ending? You die in the book. It wasn't fair, okay? I just wanted to see if I could, I don't know, give you a better chance. You mumbled. His expression softened at your words, though his confusion remained. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees as he watched you carefully. So you are the one who pulled me from death. You looked at him. That's not what I... Oh, forget it. None of this makes sense anyway. Jungkook leaned back, a small smirk playing at the corner of his lips, despite the confusion still in his eyes. I knew I would find you, no matter how long it took. He said again, looking at you while you narrowed your eyes. Find who? Me? And for the first time you saw him smiling even slightly. My wife. The words hit you like a thunderbolt. Wife? What are you talking about? He stood up and stepped closer. His intense presence made the small room feel even smaller. He reached out as if to touch your face but stopped short, his hand hovering inches from your cheek. It's you. I would recognize you anywhere, the one who made me come to life, even in the strange world. Your eyes widened. No, 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 you have got this all wrong. I'm not your wife. You don't remember me? He said, frowning. Of course I don't. You're not real. You're fictional, a character from a book. And I'm not your wife. I'm just a reader. He straightened, his expression darkened and brows knit together in a mix of confusion and hurt. Fictional? You insult me further by calling me imaginary? You waved your hand, shaking your head. No, yes. Ugh. This is so weird. You're not supposed to be real. You're from Kingdom of Shadows. You're not supposed to be here. He seems to mull over your words. His jaw tightened. After a moment, his gaze returned to you, softer but no less intense. I don't know what kind of trick this is, but I know you're my wife. I knew I would find you in a strange world. Oh, for crying out loud, I'm not married to anyone, let alone you. He smirked faintly, as if amused by your outburst, and took another step closer. You retreat until your back hits the wall. You can deny it all you want, but I feel it. I've always felt it. You're mine. He said, smirking while your eyes widened. Nope. No, this is a huge misunderstanding. I didn't summon you to... You cut yourself off, realizing you don't even have an explanation for why you did this. His smirk grew as though your silence confirmed his suspicions. You summoned me. You brought me here. Isn't that proof enough for our bond? He said teasingly, making your jaw drop. I only summoned you because I wanted to give you a happy ending with me. He said, raising an eyebrow, making your cheeks turn red in embarrassment. His tone was low, dangerous, but there was a glimmer of curiosity in his eyes. You groaned, rubbing your temples as you tried to make sense of this disaster. This is a nightmare. Perhaps for you, for me, this is fate, he said, chuckling softly. He stepped even closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. Whether you remember or not, I'll prove it to you. You're my wife and I'll never leave your side again. Your heart skipped a beat as his words sank in. The problem wasn't just that he was real, it was that he was completely convinced you belonged to him. Then he started looking around your modern apartment with a mix of disdain and curiosity. But where is this place actually is? Have you been hiding from me all this time? You spent the next hour trying to convince him he was a fictional character and that this was the real world, but Jungkook was having none of it. Instead, he made himself at home, marveling at your enchanted window panels, your TV. When he discovered your collection of novels, including The Dark Prince's Curse, he flipped through it, pausing when he saw his name. His expression darkened. You have been spying on me through it, cursed tome. It's fiction, you said, taking the book from his hand. His response was to declare, "No matter, I shall protect you from whoever dares write such lies about me." It's been 3 days since you accidentally summoned Jungkook into your world and your life had spiraled into chaos. He refused to leave your side, constantly shadowing you no matter where you go. You are beginning to think he has some kind of supernatural GPS on you. You poured yourself a cup of coffee, enjoying the rare moment of silence in the morning. Just as you took your first sip, a deep voice startled you from behind. "You should eat something with that. Coffee alone isn't good for you." You yelp, nearly spilling the coffee as you whip around to see him leaning casually against the counter, arms crossed, a faint smirk on his face. "Jungkook, how are you even here? I locked my door." "Doors can't keep me out," he said, shrugging while you looked at him in disbelief. "Can you please just leave me alone for 5 minutes? I'm your husband. Why would I leave my wife alone?" he said, smiling softly. "God, I think I got the wrong version. He wasn't like that in the story." "Whom are you talking to, dear wife?" You looked at him annoyingly. "I'm not your wife. I think I had to remember marrying the literal prince of shadows." Jungkook tilted his head, studying you closely. You avoid his gaze, feeling your cheeks heat up under his intense stare. "Whether you remember or not, I know you are her. My heart does not lie." You sighed, taking a sip of your coffee. "Great, now I'm being romantically guilt-tripped by my favorite villain." Jungkook was inspecting your kitchen with a mix of fascination and suspicion. You were trying to make breakfast while he stood in front of your microwave, glaring at it. "What is this strange box?" he said, pointing at the microwave. You rolled your eyes, not paying much attention. "It's a microwave. It heats food." Jungkook narrowed his eyes. "A fireless oven? Impossible." You sighed. "It's not that deep, Jungkook. Just press this button." Before you can finish, the microwave beeped and Jungkook took out a dagger from his sleeve. "It's alive. Stay back, my love," he shouted while you grabbed his arm. "Jungkook, no, it's not alive. It's just a machine." Jungkook stared at you, clearly skeptical, before reluctantly lowering the dagger. "Your world is full of sorcery." You laughed. "Yes, sure, let's go with that." You were halfway through your shift at the bookstore, arranging the new arrivals on the shelves, when you heard a familiar voice. "Is this what you do all day?" he said teasingly. You spun around, your eyes widened as you saw him standing there, casually flipping through one of the books. He was dressed in modern clothes now, though he somehow still managed to look like he stepped out of another world. He was looking breathtakingly handsome in the modern clothes. "What are you doing here?" "Checking on my wife." Your heart skipped a beat, but you managed to keep your expression normal and crossed your arms. "I'm not your wife, and you can't just show up at my job." He closed the book and tilted his head. "I can go anywhere you are. That's my right." You rolled your eyes but couldn't able to hide the blush. "Where did you get these clothes and your hair?" he said proudly. "I found stores. This world is so convenient. You can get anything so easily." "And how did you pay?" "I didn't have the cash they were asking, so I gave them a gold pin to which they agreed." You shook your head in disbelief. "Next time, just ask me if you have to do anything, alright? Now let's go from here," he said, grabbing his hand and walking ahead while he smiled. You were at a cafe with your best friend, finally venting about your situation. She listened intently and her eyes widened with disbelief. "So let me get this straight. You accidentally summoned the villain from your favorite book and now he thinks you are his wife? Are you sure?" "You think I'm just blabbering?" "Of course he is, and he won't leave me alone." She was about to respond when her eyes widened and she froze. You frowned, confused, before turning to look over your shoulder. Sure enough, there was Jungkook sitting at a table in the corner, casually sipping tea while staring at you. "Oh, for the love of—" you said, groaning while Nancy looked amazed. "Is that him?" You sighed. "Unfortunately." She looked at you. "Girl, I don't know what you're saying, but he's handsome, like some hero. You're so lucky to pull such a perfect guy." You looked at her in disbelief. Are you done talking about me? You bury your face in your hands while Nancy stifled a laugh as Jungkook walked over and sat beside you like he belongs there. I told you I'll never leave you alone, he said, smirking while you glared at him. Clearly. Coming back home, you flopped onto your couch, glaring at Jungkook, who has made himself far too comfortable on your armchair. Don't you have better things to do than stalk me all day? No, my only concern is you. Great, lucky me, he said sarcastically while he leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees as he looked at you seriously. I know this isn't what you expected, but I meant what I said. You brought me back, and I'll protect you with everything I have. For a moment, the sincerity in his voice made your heart skip a beat. You shook your head, trying to ignore the fluttering feeling in your chest. I didn't ask for a bodyguard. No, but you got one anyway, he said, smirking. You groaned, grabbing a pillow and tossing it at him. He caught it easily, chuckling softly. No matter how frustrated you were, one thing was clear: he was not going anywhere. As days turned into weeks, you began to see past his arrogant exterior. Jungkook was a man burdened by his tragic past, a victim of betrayal and loneliness. He opened up about the curses that bound him to a life of pain, and in return you told him about your struggles in real world. You remind me of her. He suddenly spoke as the two of you were sitting on the couch, eating popcorn and watching a fantasy movie. The woman I loved, the one I lost. You slowly looked at him. Am I her? You whispered. He looked at you, his eyes filled with longing. I don't know, but I do know that I cannot bear to lose you too. Jungkook's presence disrupted your life, but it also brought you joy you hadn't felt in years. You dreaded the idea of sending him back to his world, but you knew you couldn't keep him here forever. One day, while searching for a solution, you discovered a second spell in the bookshop's tome, a way to break his curse. It required his true love's kiss. You hesitated, unsure if you were truly the one he loved or just a reflection of his past. Later that day, you came back home, a bit sad, but when you came back, Jungkook prepared the dinner, surprising you. It was a moment you wanted to capture for life, but you knew you couldn't be selfish and keep him in the world he doesn't belong to. After dinner, you and Jungkook were sitting on the balcony watching the stars. The tension between you were visible as you tried to ignore how close he was sitting. Do you wish to send me back? You flinched slightly, fearing he might have heard the chaos going on inside you. You looked at him. What? To my world, to my cursed fate. I don't know. You belong there, but I don't want you to leave. Jungkook turned to you, his expression uncharacteristically vulnerable. Then don't send me back. Let me stay. You looked away. It's not that simple. You're not meant to be here, and I'm not meant to. Suddenly he cupped your face. To love me? You froze, your heart pounding as his words hung in the air. He leaned in, his gaze locked on yours. But I love you, Ryan. I've fallen even more. Tears filled in your eyes. You also didn't want him to go, but it was not that simple. You can't keep him here. With a heavy heart, you decided you'll break the curse and send him back. I'm sorry, Jungkook. I love you too, but I can't keep you here. With shaky hands, you cupped his face while your heart raced as you leaned in and kissed him softly, letting your feelings guide you. The air around you glowed, the magic started breaking apart like sunlight through clouds, but instead of disappearing back to his world, Jungkook stayed. He didn't fade away. He stood there real and steady, looking at you like you were everything. I chose to stay, he said gently, his hands holding your face. His voice was warm, filled with love. I don't need a kingdom. I just need you. Tears filled your eyes as you looked at him, no longer the villain people feared, but the man who had given up everything for you. You hugged him tightly, letting your tears fall freely. I love you so much. He smiled and hugged you as tightly, and so the misunderstood villain became your very real happily ever after. Life with Jungkook was anything but ordinary. He adapted to your world, blending his old world charm with modern quirks. Together, you wrote a new story, one filled with laughter, love, and a little bit of chaos. And every time you reread The Dark Princess Curse, you smile knowing that sometimes the villain really does get the girl.